This museum, I think, is going to be very special because we're on hallowed ground. So it's not about the building itself, and it's not about the things, but it's about the landscape. You don't need anything there. If you know the story, just walking in that landscape, you actually feel something, right? How do we emote those spirits, right, in the landscape? We want to tell that story where slaves first crossed over into North America. I was taken by this image, and this is over at Sullivan's Island. And it seemed like a Xerox. And when I first saw it, I took a picture of it on my camera, and it looked like textile when I first looked at it. But then when I went back, it was actually the Brooks map, right? And if you don't know the Brooks map, this was one of the first depictions of the Atlantic crossing, where you see how the slaves were stored in the ship head to toe, and crammed in. And this really created this advocacy by abolitionists, to really, get involved. But this image became something that's still part of the history that we turn to. And we decided that maybe using the Brooks map could be a way to tell the story in a very clear way. We've devised this idea of an infinity fountain. It will fill up and drain, I think, every hour on the hour. And there's a small slot right at the edge where Gaston's Wharf began. And it's a stainless steel piece. And so water will recirculate at that point, right? And so you might come here to go into the museum and you might just see a fountain, and then you come out and you will see this kind of density of figures as you're looking back out towards the water. But the whole idea is to draw your eyes back out, right, to the Atlantic. Right, and have that moment where you feel like you're on hallowed ground and there's that connection back across. How do we talk about the people who lost their lives here, who were bought and sold here? There will be 2 walls that will be reflective, and etched on the outside will be the story, right, of what happened in those warehouses. You can walk through the warehouse, and on 2 walls there's a reflection. We've designed furniture that builds on this kind of Afrocentric kind of notion of kings and queens. The entire ground plane that you're seeing in white is all tabby. We're really working to think about how can the floor of the museum really be like the Atlantic. The columns are actually tabby. So it's like the ground comes up and holds the building. And as you come in, we wanted to really acknowledge that the ground is this kind of sacred place. And so the ground is kind of agitated as it looks back towards the city, and it forms these kind of dune-like forms. But when you look back, it actually frames the city. It takes away that kind of foreground and brings the background in.